Satipatthana way of practice. In Samatha way of practice, we emphasize to develop more and more concentration power, to have deep concentration, to feel peaceful state of mind, calm state of mind, tranquil state of mind. But when we are going to do the Vipassana practice, although there is some necessity of concentration, but mostly in Vipassana practice, we have to pay preference to the awareness or mindfulness, because we are trying to do the Vipassana practice to gain more and more understanding, more and more knowledge, and more wisdom to realize ourselves and to see the actual nature of the world. The actual nature of the world is depend on impermanence, suffering, and non-self nature. These are the three major characteristics of Vipassana. Through the practice of Vipassana, if we cannot realize these three most important characteristics in the practice, that means our practice is not well functioning, not well practiced, not well applied the mindfulness. When we really do the Vipassana practice, we must realize those three characteristics through our own experiences, observing the physical and mental bodily movements. At the beginning, when we start the practice, we should try to choose very simple, easy object as the object of practice, to place it, the mindfulness on it. Although we can apply the breathing process also as the mindfulness practice, but as I had mentioned in my Dhamma talk day before yesterday, breathing practice is connected with Samatha way of practice. Not to mix Samatha way of practice and Vipassana way of practice. Therefore, late Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw according to his own teacher's guidance, the Mengun Jetuan Sayadaw applied as the object of the practice the movement of the abdomen. For the Vipassana practice, the movement of the abdomen gives a lot of help to the yogis when they know how to observe the movement of the abdomen. Actually, at that time, the meditators are not watching the belly. The movement of the abdomen means when we breathe in, especially in our navel area, there will be some movement as the rising movement of the abdomen. And when we breathe out, there will be falling movement in the abdomen. As the basic object of Vipassana practice, therefore, we would like to give the basic object as the prime object for the practice, the movement of the abdomen or the object of the rising and falling. Before we observe the rising and falling process, the sitting position is the same. The Buddha himself mentioned in Mahasatipatthana Sutta how to try to do the practice. After choosing the right place conducive to the practice, then we sit cross-legged. There are three types of cross-legged postures. One we call full lotus posture, as we see in the Buddha's statue. Both soles of the feet are upward and well crossed. The legs one against the another. But that posture is very firm and difficult posture. Without having proper exercise to sit in that posture, it is not advisable for the new yogis to sit on that cross-legged posture. But there are some devotees who might have done yoga exercises and they know how to sit on that full lotus posture. For them it might be suitable. For ordinary practitioners, that full lotus posture couldn't be applied. And another second posture is the half lotus posture. We place it one leg below, and top of it we place it another leg, sole upward, and that is called half lotus posture. Although the half lotus posture seems easier to sit at the beginning, but later part, because the legs are pressing one another. So therefore there could be painful sensation later part. Easily yogi or practitioners get tired, and lack of patience, they cannot sit longer in that posture. So therefore we prefer the another posture which is called free posture. Free posture means without pressing each leg against the other, keeping freely the legs, one inside and another outside, without pressing the legs each other. And when we sit that posture, it is easier for us to keep the upper part body straight. Not necessary to straighten ourselves. Upper part body should be upright, shouldn't be bending. And the uprightness should be comfortable, easy and relaxing one, not with tension, tightness and stiffness. Keep the upright position lightly, and after that we need to place it the head also right way, not to bend down and not to lift up too high. Just simply in the middle of the shoulder, balancing the head. Keep it in easy way. After that, the rising and falling also depend on wind element. So therefore, we have to apply the in and out breath to visualize or to see the rising and falling movement in the abdominal area, especially in the navel area. And before that, we have to place it our hand in proper position. So at first, place it the left hand, palm upward on your lap, and put the right hand on top of it, palm upward. At that time also, the arms shouldn't be tight and full of tension. Easily we have to place it the hands also in comfortable position. But we shouldn't press thumbs each other. Just slightly touch, as if in between there is very thin paper. So without pressing the thumbs each other, comfortably keeping the thumbs on the lap. And then gently we have to breathe in and out, but not paying attention to the breathing, but try to pay attention to the abdominal area. Focus our mind on the abdominal area with precise concentration. And when the breath goes in, try to apply the mindfulness, carefully to see the rising movement of the abdomen and just apply the mental noting as rising. When we breathe out, automatically there will be the falling movement, and we, with well-focused mind and with precise awareness and mindfulness, try to see the falling process. When we see the rising and falling process, we have to see them from the beginning to the end. When the rising starts, immediately the mindfulness should be followed from the beginning to the end. After the ending of rising process, sure there will be falling process. Same way, try to follow the falling process from the beginning to the end and observe as falling. So in this way, rising as rising, falling as falling. Just try to be mindful on rising and falling. At the beginning, lack of exercise and practice and weakness of mindfulness, it is also sure that we cannot immediately perceive the rising movement and falling movement clearly. However, we shouldn't be disappointed and disheartened. Proper effort is required. With that effort, accurate mindfulness should be applied. With accuracy, slowly and slowly, we can see the rising movement and the falling movement. Rising as rising, falling as falling. As I have stated just now, we have to see the rising, falling from the beginning to the end. But at the beginning, it is also might be difficult for the new yogis. So they may see the beginning only, or that they may see the ending only. Never mind. Just try to observe it, try to observe it, try to observe it again and again and again with relaxed mind, with simple observation. When we cannot observe the rising and falling, not to try to breathe very hard to make the rising and falling clear. Otherwise you may get tired very easily. So therefore, just try to gently observe rising, falling, rising, falling. Okay, please try now by the yogis. Mind should be well focused on the abdominal area. Now we shouldn't try to see the breathing also. Automatically there will be breathing in and out. Just we try to mindfully see the rise and fall. Rising, falling. Rising, falling. And another thing in mindfulness practice which we need to understand, and that is The mind won't stay immediately on the rising and falling process. Mind may go out. Mind may wander. If the mind is not staying with the rising and falling, and the wandering mind hinders the yogi, then immediately try to aware the wandering mind and pay attention to it, wandering. The secondary object won't last long. The wandering mind will come back again and try to go immediately to the rising and falling process. We should try to keep our mindfulness most of the time with the rising and falling. But in the beginning, it couldn't be so. So, the outgoing mind may disturb us a lot. Anyway, when the mind is going out, be aware it is going out and bring it back and try to place it on the rising and falling. Not only wandering thought could be there, thinking also could arise. If we realize thinking is there, observe it as thinking and then go back to the rising and falling. There may arise another type of thought as planning. If your mind is planning, just observe as it is, planning as planning, and come back to the rising and falling. Sometimes there will be imagination. Observe it as imagining, and come back to the rising and falling. So in this way, although the prime object is rising and falling, there might be plenty of new secondary objects. If the secondary object is not hindering the observance of rising and falling, we don't need to go to those secondary objects. Just stay with the rising and falling. And make the prime object clearer and clearer with the precise awareness, accurate awareness. If we can catch the rising and falling movement accurately, precisely, clearly, the wandering mind would be less. If not, there will be all sorts of thinking thoughts coming in. Anyway, those thinking thoughts also, the object of our mindfulness. Therefore, if we can observe the thinking thought, wandering thought, planning thought, imagining thought, daydreaming thought, as it is, so our mindfulness is still there, it is not out of practice. But if we cannot observe them and our mind is drifting away and we don't know, and at that time there is the disturbance. At the beginning, immediately also we cannot penetrate the new coming guests. So sometimes our mind is nowhere, neither in rising and falling, nor in those secondary objects. Anyway, I will try. With that intention, we have to try to observe the rising and falling non-stop, continuously. Those new yogis who haven't done the practice before, after a few minutes sitting, there could also be arising all sorts of feelings, especially uncomfortable physical feelings. Sometimes there could be itchiness. If itchiness is there, itchy, or itching. Sometimes there could be stiffness on the leg, although we are not suppressing the legs each other, still there could arise painful sensation. If painful sensation is there, pain. After observance, the painful sensation could go away, but sometimes the painful sensation can increase. Being patient, we need to try to observe the painful sensation. When the painful sensation arises, because it can stay sometime longer, so we may not be able to go back to the rising and falling. Never mind. If we can observe the painful sensation as the object, then you can observe the painful sensation, pain. Sometimes aching feeling could be there, sometimes sleepy leg could be there, sometimes numbness could be there. All sorts of painful sensation could arise. Being patient, we have to observe those new coming objects also. So in this way, observing the prime object as the rising and falling, there could be all sorts of other new objects. In mindfulness practice, we shouldn't neglect all those objects. We have to pay attention to them and try to be aware each of them. So that way we are trying to develop concentration as well as mindfulness. In Vipassana practice, therefore, ardent effort is necessary. Strong effort is necessary. We have to exhort with strong mental will. Mind should be very strong enough in the practice of Vipassana. Because in practice of Vipassana, we have to aware all those momentary happenings, events. We shouldn't try to forget all those things. We should pay attention to them. That's how the concentration couldn't be deep concentration in mindfulness practice. the concentration will be momentary one. Paying attention to each and every object non-stop. That way we can strengthen the mindfulness power. Being mindful moment to moment. So that is how the difference is there in Samatha practice and in Vipassana practice. In the Vipassana practice, although we are closing our eyes, still there may arise that something seeing. If we see something, immediately we need to observe it as seeing. When we hear sound, hearing. When we smell something, smelling. When we get some kind of taste, tasting. If we feel touch, feeling any part of the body, touching. So that way, all those five senses also could be observed when they arise in their way. So we shouldn't miss them also. Therefore, all those objects which may arise from 6 sense doors, they are the objects of the Vipassana practice. And during sitting there could arise drowsy feeling, sleepy feeling, and even we may get sleep. During sleep we cannot be mindful, but when we get drowsy feeling, that drowsy feeling also need to be noted, drowsy. If the sleeping feeling is there, sleepy, the effort must be strong enough when we observe the lazy type of sleepy feeling. We cannot simply sleepy, observe that way. We have to observe it sleepy with forceful effort. Then only the sleepiness can be go away a little bit far. Otherwise, if our observation is weak, then we can get easily sleep. And our mind sometimes could be very restless. Even as 1 second we cannot keep the mind calm and quiet. If that sort of mental state is there, then we should note as restless, 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 without getting disappointed. Sometimes there could be worry. We should observe worry, 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 or worrying, worrying, worrying. Sometimes there could arise doubt, doubting, 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 or confusing, confusing, confusing. Sometimes all sorts of sensuous thought can arise. If lust arises, lusting, lusting, lusting. If craving arises, craving, craving, craving. If attachment arises, attaching, attaching, attaching. So that way, those hindering aspects also need to be noted. But we shouldn't go into them. Just paying attention only. Whenever thought comes, just aware, simply thinking, thinking, not to discriminate the thoughts, what sort of thoughts are arising. So simply we have to aware, we have to realize, and we have to see how the mind and body is working during the time of sitting. Although there are plenty of other objects, immediately we cannot introduce to you everything. With your own experience, you have to know all these things, how the physical objects and mental objects are come into being during the observation time of the object. In Vipassana practice, there are few things which are very important. Precise aiming, directing force of mind, right effort, and each time knowing the object clearly and to be mindful accurately. At the same time, when the object is there. If the object is not there, then we cannot be mindful. So, present moment is very important in Vipassana practice. Therefore, the aiming should be in right time when the object is really present there. Then only mindfulness can be applied perfectly. So the new yogis, can you observe the rising and falling? Can you see? Those who have experience, for them it may not be difficult, but for the new yogis, especially those who are just beginning, for them difficult to get the rising and falling in right time. So we have to make strong effort for the practice. At the beginning, everything becomes difficult for us. Not only meditation. So required lot of experiences. We shouldn't get disappointed because of that. If the mind is very, very restless, then it is also need to suggest to the yogis, at first they try to develop concentration, applying the in-breath and out-breath process. But when we do the vipassana, not to mix in-breath and out-breath and rise and fall together. But anyway, the in-breath and out-breath also could be used for vipassana. But when you are inclined to Samatha way of practice using in-breath and out-breath, then to apply the in-breath and out-breath for Vipassana practice difficult. So that is why from the beginning, not to mix up, we have to exercise the rise and fall. Actually, when we can see clearly the rising and falling, and that will be very good object to clearly realize the three characteristics later on. You can see clearly the impermanent nature, suffering nature, and non-self nature with the clear object of rise and fall. And therefore, it has strong power to get the penetration in Vipassana practice. That is why Mahasi Sayadaw used that technique. Okay. Today evening also I am specially giving the Dhamma talk connected with mindfulness. Satipatthana way of practice. In Samatha way of practice, we emphasize to develop more and more concentration power, to have deep concentration, to feel peaceful state of mind, calm state of mind, tranquil state of mind. But when we are going to do the Vipassana practice,